Nigerians will tell you that most vice presidents, they're always like pushed to one side. They just give them one particular department to keep them busy, and then they don't have to ask their principals, what exactly are you doing with this or with that? So what kind of leadership style are you, Ahmed Buhari, bringing to the table?
So again, I'm the running mate on this platform, but in the last 15 minutes that we've had this chat, I don't think you think I'm a vice president you're going to push to the side. But most importantly, we have a very good relationship with Dumebi Kachikwu. The reason why most vice presidents are pushed to the side is because immediately they are being handpicked to be vice presidents, or the system work towards around it to emerge them as the vice president, they become sycophants, instant sycophants. I have seen vice presidents who literally kneel down to say hello to the president. This is a partnership. This is supposed to be a partnership that will lead into friendship, that will lead into brotherhood.
So we begin today's conversation taking our quote from Chief Obafemi Jeremiah Oyeniyi Awolowo, the leader of Nigeria's Action Group Party and the first indigenous premier of Western Nigeria. He campaigned heavily for developmental change and implemented free primary education and child health care policies across the Western region. He once said, "The influence which a nation exerts, the respect which it enjoys, and the prestige accorded to it on the world scene depend on two important factors: the size of its wealth and the caliber of its leadership." Absolutely spot on. Now let's take our second quote, and this one is from Susie Kassem, an American writer, poet, philosopher, and multifaceted artist of Egyptian origin. She once said, "Choose a leader who will invest in building bridges, not walls, books, not weapons, morality, not corruption, intellectualism, and wisdom, not ignorance." I like this one. All right, our last quote is from George Jean Nathan, an American drama critic and magazine editor. He once said, "Bad officials are elected by good citizens who don't vote." I agree. Now let's take our last quote, and this one is like the Basbus. Okay, and it is from Ademola Nuruddin Jackson Adeleke, a Nigerian politician and businessman. He's the governor-elect of Osun State. He once said, "I don't want the APC to know what we have on them until we get to court. I am more than confident I will be bringing them evidence one by one." Bagang, bagang, bagang. Interesting, you say. All right, then let's see how all of this goes to relate to what we'll be discussing tonight. Very warm greetings and welcome to The Conversation. We're reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. Of course, I am Annabelle Oji. Now, the increasing calls among Nigerians for a competitive and credible alternative or third force to the two biggest political parties, that's the APC and PDP, has seen businessman and media entrepreneur Dumebi Kachikwu contesting to become Nigeria's next CEO in the 2023 presidential elections under the African Democratic Congress. So on tonight's conversation, we will be having a chat with Ahmed Buhari. He is the vice presidential candidate for the African Democratic Congress, and he will be telling us, or he will tell us, how they intend to go on the rescue mission to salvage Nigeria if and when they or he becomes the vice president and when his principal becomes the president come 2023. Now this is The Conversation, and I will be your host. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Captain's Television Studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you're right on time for the interview. Our guest on the show today is Ahmed Buhari. He is the vice presidential candidate for ADC. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Annabelle. It's good to be here.
Good to have you too. All right, now let's start by getting up close and personal with you. Before now, when Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu actually said he was going to announce his vice presidential candidate, there were lots of kind of, am I going to call it silence? Or like we had people saying, okay, who is it going to be? Like there were these suspense and all. And then when he finally announced you, and then people were like, oh, who is this guy? We've not heard about him before. So walk us through. Tell us, who is Ahmed Buhari?
Okay. That you've never heard before, comes as a bit of surprise. I'm the first young person to ever declare to run for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I was in my mid-30s when I did so, and I did contest for that office in 2019. So when you say you've never heard of it before, it comes like a surprise. Before then,
Look, I'm not talking for me. I'm talking about for Nigerians who have not heard about the name.
Well, I didn't see a lot of people say they didn't know me. A lot of people said to him, oh, you picked somebody who used to be a presidential candidate and now is agreeing to be a running mate. So some people were asking, why would he agree to be a running mate? And I said very clearly to everybody that in 2019, when we were contesting, we made it very clear that we're going to be supporting a Southern candidate in 2023, because for us, we believe that the unwritten rule in the country was expecting a Northern candidate to emerge in 2019. So naturally, I went everywhere and I said to everybody that I'm going to support a Southern candidate in 2019. And so for people who have followed my story in the last 7 to 8 years in my political activity, I supported the emergence of a Southeastern president, for example. And I vehemently worked with aspirants in other political parties to see how they could possibly emerge as the candidate in their parties, in a bid to show my support for the emergence of a president from that region. Be that as it may, most of those guys did not emerge naturally from their political parties, mostly because the process of the delegates trying to pick up somebody at the primary election didn't favor them. Again, I think it's politics. Again, I think it's for people to go back to the drawing board and see what exactly they have to do to help them succeed. So when I got a call from Mr. Dumebi Kachikwu, it wasn't the first call I got in the last 3 months. I got a call. I got a call from other presidential candidates who poached me and said that they want
to. Are you going to put a face or name to it?
I don't know if it would be fair to them.
Okay.
I don't know if it would be fair to them because not all of them might want it to be public. But yeah, I think I'll respect that. We didn't do any meeting publicly, even though I still have footages and pictures from all of those meetings I had with them. And for the first one, I said to him that we do not share the same brand of politics. I'm a politician who would rather talk about the issues. I will not attack any personality. I would make sure that whatever it is that we're doing, we're going to do it according to the laws and the constitution, and try to make as much as possible not to create any sort of friction that would, affect the already volatile situation that we're experiencing. And then the second candidate, after back and forth in meetings, I think we got to a point where I was told that we are up for a competition with other people, and so they were going to settle for someone else. And I wish them the very best. They didn't tell me who it was going to be, but eventually somebody else emerged. And then Mr. Dumebi came, and we had those back and forth meetings with him for about a month. And then I said, okay, fine, we're going to do this. My acceptance to do this was mainly because the drive is there, the passion is there. I still want to see a country work, at least in my lifetime. I still want to be one of those old men that would happen to emerge in this country that people will say, what did you do during your time to see that things get better in the country? And I would say, this is the effort I put in. And if what we're doing right now would, translate to the positivity that we're expecting, then I'll be excited to say, yes, I have been part of it, and this is the result.
So did you have to collapse your ideology to fit into Mr. Dumebi's ideology then?
Mostly the driving force for Dumebi was because after we had those series of meetings, I think he was drawn to the fact that, because don't forget, he was also shopping for other people as well. So all the people who came to him, who were recommended to him by other people, he also had to look at all of that to decide who he was going to be settling down with. And I think when I did make my when we have those conversations, I think he got really mesmerized, and I think it now prompted him to go look for some other things that he haven't, researched about me in the past. Because I think with the political space that we have in Nigeria, many people are more concerned about how controversial you are during campaigns. If you say things that attack other personalities, people want to talk about you. If you say things that are going to be talking about issues, people just swipe. So we are excited about all of those razzmatazz, so to speak. And so for me, I'm not that kind of person. I would rather sit down and say, okay, fine. If these are the problems that you are listing that we already know, my 12-year-old son already knows the problems in this country. He will tell you whether there is electricity, whether it's traffic that is bothering him, or whether he has been asked to leave school before time because they fear that Boko Haram is going to come attack them in school, or whether it is because he has not been to his hometown in almost 4 years because we're scared of the banditry that has affected the entire road that leads to my hometown. All of these things are the things that he already knows. So if we already know these things, why repeat them? I would rather naturally think that the most important thing for us today is to talk about the issues and see how best we can resolve them with superior ideas, not with sensational statements that are bound to just capture the headlines.
Okay, so you touched on some salient issues, and we're going to take them one after the other. But now, before we get right onto it, you talked about, okay, you said he actually saw, there was a particular statement that you made that made him decide to go look into your CV again. So would you tell us what exactly is that one thing that he saw about you that made him want to check again?
Well, I thought maybe he thought I was very handsome.
Interesting.
I don't know. But on a serious note, it was series of meetings. And I think after the first meeting, one of the first things he said was, how would you exist and I'm not looking towards your direction and meeting other people that I know cannot activate my campaign the way I want it to be activated. But if there's anything in particular that you believe you want to hear, probably you should ask him. Because for me, it was more so, the driving force for me was also the fact that I saw the passion in him. Because every time he's talking, from the perspective of somebody who is not happy with the things that are happening and believes that if given the opportunity, he's going to resolve them. And so for my acceptance, I just needed to ask him, what are you going to do about this, that, and that? And the solutions he was preferring are solutions that some of us know about, but then he was coming around those solutions with something to touch to them that might actually help them come to fruition. And the other thing that excited me about him was the fact that I saw the true passion, I saw the true desire. And this is a man who, in all sense of it, might decide to just leave Nigerian problems and just go and sit down in some other nice country that has everything working and decide, leave Nigeria and it's Wahala. But he's deciding, I want to be in the front row, I want to be in the front line, I want to see how we can fix this thing. And for me, that was a goal for me. And I said I was going to partner with him eventually. I think on the 4th week, I said, we're going to do this. Let's work together. Let's see how we're going to reactivate all of this structure and political currency that I had built in the last few years and see how we can translate into some sort of positivity for our campaign.
So with all of the solutions that he preferred, do you actually see something workable? Because some politicians will just tell you, we would turn $100 to $1 to $1, and then you know that it is not possible. So with all of those solutions that he preferred, did you actually see a light in that tunnel?
That's why I'm here.
Okay. Great. All right, now let's go straight. And then you talked about how some politicians would actually want to backlash other people, and then that's what we begin to see these days. When you ask one politician, what are you going to do differently for Nigeria? How do you intend to solve Nigeria's hydra-headed challenges? Let's talk about electricity. Electricity came into Nigeria since 1898 or so. And then up until now, we're still talking about electricity. And then you have one politician coming to tell you that we will bring electricity to Nigeria. That's not news. You have politicians telling you that we would bring good roads or we'll bring portable water. We should not be looking at things like that. We should be looking at ideologies. So for all of those things, you just have people talking about trying to be politically correct. That's the word I was looking for. Now, what are those? How is your administration, if you become the vice president, how do you intend to solve Nigeria's hydra-headed challenges? Let's start with electricity. At this minute, we're still talking about the national grid collapsing to 0 megawatt. That's like one problem that Nigerians should be looking at. So how do you intend to solve Nigeria's electricity challenge? Let's start with that first.
So yes, the electricity problem is in the center of everything that is happening in our country, whether it's going to be the economy, whether you want to look at it from the angle of a system that is functional, because anybody who's going to do anything is going to be needing electricity to succeed. But you see, the existing system that we have is failing because of one big problem: distribution. When you go around the country, I've been to like 4 different plants, Kainji, Jeba, Jos plants, the one in Wari as well. But you see, the biggest concern here is not that the gencos are not able to generate as much power as possible, but when they transmit, obviously send the power to the distribution channels, we have a problem with the grids holding on to the power that has been sent to it, which means, in all honesty, our systems are archaic, our systems are old. We need to do something differently. And you know, I'm being honest about everything I'm going to say to you. The Buhari administration in the last 1 month or so have really driven us into the path of small hope with regards to the relationship that they've built with Siemens, the German company that is supposed to come and overhaul our electricity system. If you go through the documents, if you go through the analysis, it is positive. It looks like for the first time we're about to get it right when it comes to power. And my honest belief is that for us as a people is that we should be optimistic that yes, indeed, this might work for us now. It might affect the cost.
So we might have to pay more for electricity.
Many people would do if the electricity is going to be available, because if the electricity is going to be available, like we keep talking about all of this problem, it's a ripple effect. So when you pick electricity, it affects everything around you. If electricity is working, your small business is working. If electricity is working, Kaftan TV does not have any business putting on any generator, and that is better profit for you. If you compare how much you're going to pay for an expensive power supply from the federal government system compared to what you do with petrol or diesel from your generators that you have to service every other week, then you realize that probably it's going to be a better deal for all of us. So yes, indeed, the Siemens relationship with the country right now with regards to power is a good one. I want us to hold on tight and believe that this is going to function. With regards to traveling around the world to see how power is being done in other countries, you can actually sit down here and get it sorted. You don't have to go anywhere. You sit down here, you call all the MDs of all the gencos and ask them what the true problems are. They will tell you. In fact, if you look for even junior staff in those companies, they will tell you what the real problems are and what they believe are the solutions to those problems. So again, like I said to you, the gencos are generating enough power. Unfortunately, we do not have the power grids are not big enough to hold up to this power. So there's always a downtime. So you see gencos generating power, and then you hear the power grids are about to expand. They say, turn off, turn off, turn off. So there will be a downtime. They turn off. They don't make any activity. They slow down, and then power is being dissipated to the different channels. And then obviously we would have to now talk to them again to reactivate.
So who is hampering each other's effort? The transmission company or the distribution? Is that what you're saying?
The transmission company, generating companies are doing a fantastic job. They don't have any problems.
So you have a problem with the transmission.
We have a
and
problem with the distribution. The distribution is where the problem is, and obviously the government is still in charge of the national grid with the quality. So everybody, all the different gencos that are generating power would have to send to the national grid, and this is the problem. Government wants to be involved in everything. Government wants to be in the middle of everything. And when you do that, it becomes too cumbersome. There's nothing wrong in being a supervisory body to ensure that these businesses are run properly.
So your government will be a supervisory body, is that what you're saying?
Our government must be a body that allows experts to run the show, and that government must be the overall, like they call it in the church, a general overseer of all that is happening, just to ensure that it's happening well. But if you're going to be government here, government there, it blows up this whole place. And that is why we're having all of these issues that we're having. So right now, in my opinion, I believe the government should be a supervisory body, not insist that the national grid must be in the control of the federal government. Because as we speak right now, if I was a businessman investing in this process, I'm going to ensure that I get the biggest grid ever in the world. I upgrade whatever is existing only so that my business would flow. But government can afford to see that it doesn't work for 2-3 days, because at the end of the day, it always has something it can fall back on to cushion its effects.
All right.
But for the businessman, he doesn't look at things like that.
All right. So now, you actually come in, or you and your principal, you're coming at such a time when you have so many big names around, and then throwing shades at each other. Now, I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I'd like you to take them in one breath. First, I would like you to give us a sneak peek on your manifesto. What exactly do you have? What makes you different from all of these big names that we've been hearing and that we're still going to be hearing anytime soon? That's one on the side. And then the second is, what kind of leadership style are you bringing to the table?
Education is going to be always paramount to us. I'm glad you talked about power. We're looking at insecurity. Of course, the economic consensus. But in all of these things that we'll talk about, I like to pick it up from where I believe is the bedrock to most of Nigerians' problems. And the bedrock to most of Nigerians' problems still lies with the civil service. You see, the civil service that is there, that everybody overlooks, is responsible for even the licensing that you would have to get to run a private network like this. The same civil service is responsible for all the contracts that we look for every day as normal citizens. The civil service is responsible for how the power generation is happening in the country right now. The civil service is responsible for how the educational system is being run. The civil service is our primary focus. And why it's our primary focus is because we believe that if the civil service is working, if the civil servants are all right, then we are closer to getting ourselves out of this quagmire. How do we get the civil service working? We would have to consider the welfare of the civil servants. That civil servants wake up in the morning and say, we are going to protest because we want an increment in salary, 30% or nothing, it's 50% or nothing, we must be... It's a direct announcement to the market woman on the streets. It's a direct announcement to the petrol stations. It's a direct announcement to everybody that more money is coming to us, so let us also hike. And so what about if the civil service looks at it from a different perspective? What does the civil servant really want to use this money for? 1, housing. 2, school fees for my children. 3, my daily supplies. 4, I want a car. Those are the things that human beings want. And those civil servants are also human beings. So how about we look for better welfare for the civil servants? How about we say, for every civil servant's child who is in a public school, your school fees, the school fees for those your children are secured. Civil servants should stop worrying about how they can steal money to take their children to school. And trust me, if the civil servants' children are in the public schools, the civil service still that controls the area of education would ensure that that educational system works. So no civil servant child should be chased out of school because they have not paid school fees. Because the day you get a child and you file it into the system that I have a child, deductions are being made in a way that it can be spread through your entire years in service. You're not going to feel it.
How do you even intend to make the civil service work when you have some public officials who are accountants and then they use their pen to throw in numbers, and then you have still in the same civil service, we're still talking about corruption, and which is widespread around there?
It's the same thing we're talking about. So what I started saying from the beginning was that if you look at these civil servants, they are actually dipping their hands into our collective resources, because there is no guarantee for them at the end of the day. They are going to retire at the age of 65 or 60 or thereabouts, but there's nothing for them. They can clearly see that there is no plan for the aged in our country. They can clearly see that if I get old today, I'm going to go back to my village. That is because there was no housing that was set up for them the day they signed up as civil servant. The day you are collecting your letter, a housing scheme is giving you, if you're a single person, you get a 1-bedroom immediately. The deductions are going to be made from your salaries. As it's being made from your salary, as you increase in rank or increase in family size, you reapply for the next level and say, oh, I want to go for a 2-bedroom, I want to go for a 3-bedroom, depending on how you can afford it. And these houses become yours at the end of your civil service time. Now, if they know that they're going to be having this kind of benefits, if they know that they can walk into any government hospital because they have a health scheme that is going to protect them, they're not going to steal any money to go to India to go and treat themselves, and they're going to ensure that those government hospitals are functional. I want you to understand critically where these problems are coming from. These problems are coming from the perspective of the fact that these guys know that there's nothing waiting for them at the end of the tunnel.
So the problem of Nigerians is the fact that civil servants are corrupt. Is that what you're saying in a nutshell?
Civil servants are the way they are because the system is not protecting them. And like I said to you, it's a ripple effect. Once the civil service is affected, once it is rotten, once the people that are there that will make everything work for us easily are dependent on the fact that their only survival or mode of survival is through theft or corrupt practices, then we're not talking about a country yet. Until we think about how we're going to protect the interests of these people that we have made the gatekeepers of our system, of our economy, of our insecurity, of our educational system, of our whatever you want to look at. Because at that helm of affairs, everything works around it.
Okay, now let's touch on your leadership style. What kind of leadership style are you bringing to the table, especially for you? Because we know that, or Nigerians will tell you that most vice presidents, they're always like pushed to one side. They just give them one particular department to keep them busy, and then they don't have to ask their principals, what exactly are you doing with this or with that? So what kind of leadership style are you, Ahmed Buhari, bringing to the table?
So again, I'm the running mate on this platform. But in the last 15 minutes that we've had this chat, I don't think you think I'm a vice president you're going to push to the side. But most importantly, we have a very good relationship with Dumebi Kachikwu. In the short time that we have known each other, we have agreed on a lot of things and we have shared responsibilities. So again, it is about how well we share our responsibilities. It is about how best we're going to be honest with each other. The reason why most vice presidents are pushed to the side is because immediately they are being handpicked to be vice presidents, or the system work towards around it to emerge them as the vice president, they become sycophants, instant sycophants. I have seen vice presidents who literally kneel down to say hello to the president. This is a partnership. This is supposed to be a partnership that will lead into friendship, that will lead into brotherhood. And that is the only way you can now start looking for a team that you can clearly see have got the capability to achieve anything they want to achieve. Because if I'm not able to tell them maybe the truth, or maybe it's not able to tell me the truth at the right time, then we're jokers.
Okay. All right, now, so you said that you're on a rescue mission to salvage Nigeria. Now, we're wondering how exactly you want to salvage Nigeria from all of its hydro-headed challenges. If we have to talk about insecurity, very recently we saw the Kuje custodial facility, how it was attacked, and days gone, heads are yet to roll. And then we also saw that some bandit had the gumption to threaten the president and even went to attack the convoy, and then heads are yet to roll. And then we've also seen how much they've been abducting and kidnapping, and then not so much have been done. The idea you have the Senate president saying that it has actually affected foreign direct investment. So now, with regards to security, we keep hearing the orders, shoot at sight and all of that. So now, how would your administration tackle insecurity headlong?
First of all, let me start by saying I'm not a beneficiary of the proceeds that are coming out from the insecurity going on in Nigeria. I have also checked extensively. Dumebi is not a beneficiary of the insecurity going on in Nigeria. I am not on this ticket because I am being sponsored by anybody or endorsed by anybody who is a beneficiary of the terror going on in this country. Which means the only thing that we're possibly going to do when we get into office is to fight this thing squarely. And the reason why all of this is persisting nearly 10, 15 years from the time we started hearing about Boko Haram is because we've been having leadership that has been failing to fire. If you have the ability to hire somebody to do a job for you and he fails to do the job, the next thing you're supposed to do is to fire the person. When you look at the private sector, no time is being wasted. You're given a task, you're not able to do it, you are sent out. But now we're running a system where the leaders who are supposed to be the custodians of the people, who have actually taken oath of office to protect lives and property of the people, are unable to fire people that they have actually hired to do the job for them. I'll give you another example. As I speak with you right now, there are choppers, there are helicopters flying Kaduna to Abuja to and fro every day. And this government is spending about $300,000 for that activity in a time when we have drones. We even have armored drones that can actually see targets and actually activate upon sight. But right now, what we're experiencing is helicopters are going back and forth only because we run a procurement economy where everybody is looking for, okay, fine, if they're going to use diesel to go and fro, I'll be the one that will supply diesel, and that chopper that is going to do this, I'm going. Meanwhile, we're risking the lives of our soldiers, the lives of our pilots, and in reality, once those things are coming, everybody hides in those bushes. Nobody even sees them. The other problem that we're facing here is that we have had people who have come out to say things like, for example, the infiltrated train that was bombed from Abuja to Kaduna, for example. Some of the people that just got released, obviously as a result of their families looking for monies to pay us ransom to get them out of the situation, telling us that from the beginning of the arrest, the bandits didn't have any plans, or the terrorists didn't have any plans to collect money from them. They had actually arrested them, kidnapped them, because they wanted to negotiate with the government to release their people in prison. Now, these people in prison, the Nigerian government refused to release them. The Nigerian government did not have a plan to release those people from the hands of the kidnappers. Eventually, these people started trading their captives for hundreds of millions of naira while planning how to activate a mission to get their people out of Kuje prison. They succeeded. Our people are still with them. Those who have money are releasing their people. This is a clear game of 0 for our system, 0 for our government, plus for the bandits. It simply means that the strategies that we're using are not working. And if the strategies we're using are not working, the exact thing we're supposed to do is to see how we can work with the existing resources that we have to get all of these things happen for us positively. But again, in all honesty, some people will say, what is the real strategy? How long is this going to last? If for example, Nigerians vote you into office today, how long will it take for you to get us out of this insecurity problem? My dear, do not let anybody deceive you. The only people that know the true security situation of the country are the president himself, who receives daily security intelligence reports, and the Security Council. These are the only two people that know exactly the extent of what we're dealing with. And for every one of us here, we are actually working around the system to believe that it's either the illegal gold refineries around the country that are harboring people who are actually doing this to scare people away from the lands that they want to explore or exploit, as the case may be, or this is being done by people who are probably part of the system, or this is actually done by machineries that are coming out of the country. So we should start thinking about our border, which brings us to the fact that some billions of naira were being released recently to Nigeria Republic to purchase vehicles that could actually be bought and given to our custom officers or immigration officers to man the borders if you want them to be more efficient.
So what are the strategies for you? Because we know that insecurity keeps shifting from one region to the other. When it gets to the south, it is called IPOB. When it gets to the north, it is called bandits or terrorists. So for you, because we've had some governors come out to say, arm yourself, get licensed guns. And then some people would actually say that is no way at all. So what kind of strategy are you bringing to the table? Because it looks like you're going to inherit it.
Yes, we haven't communicated effectively with the Nigerian people. 6 years ago, there were plans to start a radio called Fulani Radio. I don't know if you remember Fulani Radio plan. A lot of people were against it. I was in support of it. I was in support of it because I knew that we were dealing with the people that were not in our schools and were not in our usual spaces where we could have conversations with them about why these things happening can be stopped and how they can be stopped, how we can resolve some of these problems. The people are not being communicated with effectively. In fact, as I speak with you right now, if government says something and bandits say something, the people in the locality believe in the bandits more than they believe in the government, because they have seen the bandits actually carry out their threats and successfully get out of it. On this other side, we've seen the government promise us and have failed. So we have to be communicating effectively. We have to educate our people. And when I say education, it's not school, it's not classroom education. It's about the news that we watch. It's about the radios that we listen to. It's about how we run the show, the space, what I see on the road when I'm driving. These things are supposed to be talking to my mind, to believe in my country. Now, you're asking me for strategies. I believe that first and foremost, every aggrieved, whether it was the Niger Delta people that are a bit calm now as a result of sitting down on the table to find out what their problem was, or the IPOP situation in Nnamdi Kanu, or the herdsmen situation that has escalated into banditry. And for me, I believe it has escalated into banditry and into terrorism, because before now, the entire border region that binds us from Nigeria to Niger Republic was a smuggling route. Most of the people were smuggling things into that place, sometimes illegal.
But then our borders were closed, and then we're still yet to find out how much effect that had.
Yes, now they got them opened again, because obviously we had a test and we saw that it wasn't working. Or should I say that the farmers in our country were able to now expand their rice farming, which was a good idea. But that plan shouldn't have gone on without us critically thinking of what we're going to do with the entire chain of people that actually man those borders and do the illegal activities, from the kingpins to the boys who do the distribution, to the boys who do the collection, down to the boys who now finally deliver those products to the end users, either in Nigeria or outside Nigeria.
All right.
So now when all of these people lost their jobs or relevance along that line, what did they become? They now became people who now wanted to survive at all means. They became the bandits. That is why the banditry is, is huge around Katsina.
So we're battling with people who feel disgruntled.
They feel disgruntled, one, because they're not doing anything. They feel disgruntled because we are not speaking with them. They feel disgruntled because even as much as we're trying to grow our agriculture, which is a good thing in-house, we should also think about what we're going to do with these millions of people who believe that this is the legit thing that they're supposed to be doing. So it's a huge ripple effect of a lot of things that have gone wrong because of our negligence. And I say one thing clearly: the reason why we're going through all of this is because we have failed as a system to transfer responsibility from one generation to the next generation at the right time. And the failure to allow this happen has created a vacuum. Now, this vacuum that has been created is now filled with all of this mess that we've just been talking about.
We'll do for a break. Let's go for a break, and when we return, we'll definitely expand this conversation. Don't move a muscle. We will be right back. For that particular youth he has no money in his pocket, he doesn't know where the next meal is coming from, and then he has humongous challenges to deal with, and then a particular politician comes to dangle money at his face. How do you speak to the conscience of that youth, or how do you change the way that particular person thinks, acts at the time, and tell him that you should not mortgage your destiny for a plate of porridge?
In truth, it's hard to tell a man that his belly is full when indeed it's empty. The only thing, and I repeat, the only thing that is going to get us out of this problem is when we indeed get a leadership that is going to be focused on ensuring that unemployment becomes a thing of the past.
If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We are reaching you from Kaftan's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you missed quite a lot, but then you can still join in the conversation. Our guest on the show tonight is Ahmed Buhari. He is the vice presidential candidate for ADC. All right, before we went on that break, we talked about quite a lot of things. We've talked about power and security. Now let's talk about uniting the country. Now you have different people calling for different things. Secessionists and all in the north, the south, the east, the west, even the north central, a lot of people calling for different things, and then you just keep asking, even the same people calling for different things. When you start singing that national anthem, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity, they are the first to raise their hands up, but then you just begin to wonder, how come you are calling for one thing but then you are singing or chanting another thing? So for your administration, how do you intend to unite the country and then bring us back to that oneness, unity and brotherhood?
So, when I declared to run in 2016, in the build-up of the 2019 election, the first thing I was saying, as on the manifesto, was, we want a united country. And if somebody said, and I will say who said so, Professor Wole Soyinka said so to me. He said, how can that be a manifesto? I hope he's watching this today. I saw it coming, and I knew very well that the only way a man can successfully rule a people or lead a people is if he can get all of them together and tell them we're heading east or north or south. His failure to do so would bring about his inability to govern, because everybody's going to be going everywhere else. So unity, especially as it concerns our country right now, is the fundamental. Many successful countries have actually allowed unity to be their first line of action. They just don't mention it because they already have things in place that make it work. And that is why an American, before anything, will scream and say, I'm an American. And even when they're in a gathering and somebody says, I am from Chicago, everybody's excited about him. I'm from New York. They're all hailing him, even though that's not their state, even though they've never been there before. So that unification is the bedrock of our ability to follow a leader in the direction that we believe would get us out of where we are.
Okay.
So this unity must be done in a way that it unites us regardless of our ethnicity, religion, political party, ideological affiliations, age brackets, gender, and social status. When I was growing up in the 80s, everybody's child was practically attending the same schools. We were in the same classes with the minister's children. We were in the same classes with the governor's children. Nothing was special. We wore the same uniforms. The only difference might be that at the end of the day, a bigger car was going to come pick him up at the gates. But when I now got into secondary school, the least question anybody would possibly ask you is, where are you from? Or what is your religion? It means that slowly we have allowed ourselves to be subdivided by so many things that unconsciously make us think that we're not the same. I took one of my children to school. He was going to enroll to get into another school, and an interview was going to be conducted for him. And the principal was the one to conduct that interview. And she asked him, what is your name? He mentioned his name. She wrote it down. How old are you? She wrote it down. Which state are you from? He mentioned, and she wrote it down. She now said, which local government are you from? And because the young man was born in Lagos, his middle name, though he's from the north, like me, his middle name is Adedeji, because I named him a Yoruba. I gave him a Yoruba name while we were living in Lagos, not for anything else, but because the society needed to see that it didn't matter to me, and that if Adedeji means a crown of like a king or a prince, why not call my son that in a Yoruba dialect? And so he said, my local government is Lagos State.
Interesting.
And then she said, this is the problem. Our children do not know. You're not teaching your children. I said, madam, we are preaching one Nigeria. We are preaching a united country. And this young man that you're interviewing here, you have just let him on. You're just trying to let him understand that he is from a different place from the next child, and that the next child is also from a different state. How about we focus on just where we live and let it just go? How about all the protests we make around as young people are centered mostly around how we can see the constitution changing from me writing down my state of origin to my state of residence? I go to the gym and I'm filling up the gym form, and you're asking me which state am I from. If I collapse here, will you go and look for blood from my state?
So it means we have to, even during employment, we have to check.
Eradicate that. Even when we write common entrance examinations, even when we write simple examinations or tests to get into employment, let us have a unique number And that is why I keep pushing for proper data management systems. Yes, I talked about proper data management systems. I was excited when this government started talking about it from 2019, moving up, but they're not doing it exactly how it's supposed to be done. And this is the problem with copy and paste. You are not just necessarily going to copy and paste. Talk to the people that are talking about this and ask them, how do you intend to make this work? No way are we going to succeed in this very complex Nigeria if we do not adopt proper data management systems that can help us fight accountability, transparency, and efficiency. Now, these problems are the reasons why we're not able to accept ourselves, because naturally the bias in the mind of the man that's about to mark that script comes to life when he sees Ibrahim Saliu and he's Ikechukwu Samuel, or when he sees Jide Abayomi and his name is Abdurrahman Abdul Malik. He just starts. It's just what it has become. So imagine I go to the exam hall, and because of my unique identification number 69436991, I write it down there. Nobody sees it as anything. People see me as that number, and then I use that number to claim everything I want to claim as a Nigerian. At that point, no one matters. Everybody's on the same level.
So you must go across board.
What do you mean by across board?
You talk about you are talking about education. You're talking about writing exams. How about the market
woman? I'm talking about seeing somebody on the road as a policeman. I stop him and I'm asking him to identify himself. Oh, 6122444, and I put it into the system. Yes, it exists. Please proceed. You're a bona fide Nigerian.
Okay.
But if all of these things do not exist, and I'm a policeman, and my name is Ahmed Buhari, and I see Olusegun Bamidele, and I'm not in the mood because one Yoruba man just annoyed me, I make a wrong decision based on my emotions.
All right, because you talked about protest, now let me ask you, where were you and what were you doing during the NSAS protest? What kind of engagement did you have around that time?
During the NSAS protest, we did a few talk around in Abuja here. I was in Abuja. I was trapped in Abuja. But fundamentally, I had a lot of TV and radio exposures. And the one thing I kept saying, and I was hoping that the young people who were in the street were listening, was that for every crisis, for every situation that seems to be unstable, as much as you are valid in your desires for change, you must understand that after your points are being made clearly, the next line of action is to seek for a meeting on the table with the people that you're in disagreement with. Regardless of how bad the battle is, bad divorce between a man and woman ends on, husband and wife ends on the table. The bad fight between Israel and Palestine is going to be resolved on a table. The situation between Iraq and Iran is going to be resolved on a table. The situation between the United States and other countries that have issues with them are always going to get resolved on the table. So I expected that at the time of the answers, I agree with all of the problems that were going on. I agree with all of the excesses from security forces, but I also wanted the people in the South to understand that that activation that was expected in the North didn't quite happen like that, because in the North, we didn't see NSAS as bullies. NSAS were the first respondents when we called for people who had attacked communities, and NSAS would arrive and do what they're supposed to do. If you go to the South, the NSAS, on the other hand, probably because there was no need for them to fight bandits, were actually putting hands in people's pockets. I lived in Lagos for 16 years. They have attacked me many times. In fact, there was a time NSAS stopped me on the road, put me in my vehicle, took me to the ATM.
I mean the SARS.
The SARS, yes, sorry, the SARS. And withdrew money. I told them I didn't have any money. They said, you have to give us money. Do you have money in your ATM? I said, yes. They followed me to my ATM. I withdrew the money. I gave it to them. They allowed me to go. These things have always been there. But I won't lie to you. In the North, when I came to the North, there was a little respect from the security forces that I saw on ground and compared to the ones in the South. So again, one of the things we were saying then was, indeed, we should look at the commanders in those areas. Are they making it a money venture where they tell their officers to go to the street to go and make money and bring back to them? Or is it that there was this level of disrespect for the people living in the South, and that was why they were carrying out activities like this? Whatever the case might be, it's subject to investigation. But I said it very clearly. All of these grievances that we have clearly itemized them and mentioned them.
Okay.
Let's get to the table with the authorities, talk about them, and get our justice one at a time. What I mean by one at a time, if you're asking for 100 things and you're able to get 20 today,
Just
be
move
happy.
on.
Come back tomorrow and ask for the remaining 80. You get another 20, and that is how you win battles. That is
Okay.
how you win battles. That's how you become victorious. But if you're going to get everything in one day, be careful not to get everything all reversed, because it was probably a trick.
Now, because you mentioned young people, there's a statement that your principal made. He said, end quote, Nigeria is condemned with selfishness and there's a need to change the way people act, think, and reason. Now, that's great. Fantastic. Now, let's talk about, let's take one of the issues that is bedeviling the country with regards to people feeling disaffected when it comes to election. And then you have during the Osun State and then the recent Osun and then the Ondo State elections, we had complaints about vote trading, either buying or selling. Now, for that particular youth who he has no money in his pocket, he doesn't know where the next meal is coming from, and then he has humongous challenges to deal with, and then a particular politician comes to dangle money at his face. How do you speak to the conscience of that youth, or how do you change the way that particular person thinks, acts at the time, and tell him that you should not mortgage your destiny for a plate of porridge?
In truth, it's hard to tell a man that his belly is full when indeed it's empty. The only thing, and I repeat, the only thing that is going to get us out of this problem is when we indeed get a leadership that is going to be focused on ensuring that unemployment becomes a thing of the past. What is going to help us is when we get that leader who is going to focus on agriculture, not just focus on one aspect of agriculture, but all aspects, whether it being cattle rearing, whether it be animal husbandry, whether it be ensuring that we exercise the entire value chain from agriculture. And we used to have what we call DFRI, Directorate for Food and Federal Rural something. It was done mainly to see that whatever we were growing from the farmland gets to the market, and then the government in most cases buys it off the farmers 100% to subsidize to the people. And this is, for me, the real subsidy that we're looking for. A lot of people are so hungry. Do you know that if I know that my 3 square meal is guaranteed, I can afford to reject 5,000 naira than to mortgage my future for the next 4 years? But food in itself is empty. It's nowhere in sight. And you are telling somebody not to collect. The second part that we have to fight is our minds. Religion has really, really dug deep into the way we think. And so when some people collect those 5,000 naira, they are being told that if you to come and swear, either using the Quran or the Bible, that you are going to vote for the person that you have collected this money on their behalf. And people really get scared and say, I have sworn, so I'm going to do what I've asked to do. If you're listening to this, nothing will happen to you. Just go and do what you think is right. But most importantly, these elections are so expensive. Now, for you to cover the space with adverts, with effective communication, it comes with a lot of monetary expectations, which means that the guys that are at the helm of affairs when it comes to how much money they control will still run the show, and those are the few people in most cases that the electorate know. I have a friend who contested in the Osun election as a governor, and it will shock you that even when he had casted his vote on the election day, he saw a group of area boys, and he said to them, have you guys voted? Baba, we have voted. He said, who did you vote for? Did you vote for, he called his party, did you vote for this party? They said, yeah, we voted for the party. He said, so on the ballot, where was the party? He's at the top. Meanwhile, his party starts with a Y.
All right then. So now, because you talked about the economy, now we know that Nigeria's economy is bleeding red at the moment. You see that businesses are packing up, and then you have unemployment rates going record high. You have the inflation and all, and then quite a lot of challenges. Now, what will your administration do differently? And then if we even have to talk about fuel subsidy, and then the controversial fuel subsidy, and then also you have debt management. Our debt profile has gone way high, and then you have the finance minister rather saying that Nigeria's debt servicing has exceeded the revenue. That's something to worry. So what will your administration do in that regard? There are like different pockets or strings in that question, but I'd like you to unbundle them in one breath.
You ask them together. You know why? Because like I said from the beginning, repo. One aspect to everything, another aspect, they're all interlinked.
And that report that you talked about, you started with the civil service. That's what you said.
I started with the civil service as the center of all of this. But anything you're going to pick, whether power, it affects the economy that you want to talk about, the dollar is there. The debt management you're talking about, it has to do with our borrowing situation, because we're borrowing money to see how we can cushion the effect of the plans that we have on the budget. The reason why we're going through all of this is for us to first of all look at what is the fundamental buying factor. It is the dollar. The dollar is more like the universal buying power of the world. And so anytime you bring out your money, you are spending dollar, it's going to naturally affect how much standing you are in your bank account. And that is why every day you hear the dollar is rising against the naira. The naira is falling next to the dollar. It is because the demand for dollar is so high that it is actually affecting the value of our naira. You can pick it from subsidy. In 2022, the National Assembly approved $9.6 billion for subsidy in Nigeria. Now, $9.6 billion can actually build for us 2 world-class refineries to be completed in the span of 18 to 24 months. So, if you want to build a refinery today that is going to be world-class, you need about $5 billion. What we approved this year for subsidy from the National Assembly is $9.6 billion. What it means is, from that money alone, you can build 2 refineries easily.
So are you going to be building refineries, or are you going to be giving license to the modular refineries that we have?
Now, these modular refineries are going to cost us about $2 billion to build a standard modular refinery. And I support the execution of modular refineries, but not from the perspective of government, which is why I'm not really excited about building these refineries. But I'm just making you understand the mathematics behind it, and what is the rationale behind getting that humongous amount of money to push into subsidy, when indeed, if we can hold on for 2 years or even borrow this money for 2 years, we can have refineries. On the aspect of modular refineries, what stops us from agreeing to see consortiums of businessmen and women execute their plans to have modular refineries? All we need to do as government, again, is to be an overseer. We get to look at all of these things that are happening. We get to tell them that based on our constitution, based on the rules and regulations of our government, this cannot be done, this can be done. Most importantly, operate within the confines of the laws of the land, remit what you're supposed to remit, and ensure that the people of Nigeria benefit from all of this. And that is all. On the aspect of the dollar that is falling every day, we are currently, the money we spent for petroleum products from the last report that they gave us in 2020, we spent about $56.3 billion again for just petroleum products. Now, if we are spending dollar every day like this, you can now see what I mean by spending the dollar as against your naira. It gives a direct fallback on how much we are worth. Now, when this money comes, when these products come in, and we want to give subsidy and allow this product get to the different distributors or the different people, we still pay this subsidy in dollars at a time when we're supposed to be focused on seeing how we can ensure that these subsidies are being paid in naira, not for any reason, but just so that we can clearly say, fine, since we have BVN attached to the accounts in Nigeria, we now know how to follow the money to the latter to ensure that every single naira and kobo is accounted for. Then we know where the leakages are. Then we know which monies are going for banditry, or which monies are being used to go and buy ammunition to send to the terrorists. We can now clearly see all of these things, or which monies are being used to go outside the country to buy houses in Dubai and in Europe. These things have got to be done, otherwise we'll be joking.
All right, our time is fast spent now. In few minutes, I'm sure you can be able to go around it, because I can't actually let you go without talking about what affects us as journalists directly, and it's with regards to press freedom. Now, we are friends now that before you become the vice president, and we're going to be celebrating your wins when you finally become the vice president, and then we will be there to put it on TV, radio and all. But then at the other side, there's always this relationship between politicians or security officials or government officials and the media. There's always this love-hate kind of relationship. When the good is there, we're there to celebrate your wins, but when the bad is there,
no, you're together during the struggle, but eventually
when you become the vice president,
you
now anything we put now becomes a slander or a libel. So how do you intend?
Becomes hate speech.
Hate speech. How would you, or how would your administration touch on press freedom very quickly?
You know, when I was talking, I did speak about communication, education. The only people that can help us do this will be the media. And that is why I told maybe in our first meetings, you know, I said, there is no way we're going to function in the house, in the villa, without having press conferences every 6 p.m. of every day. And all of these press bodies, all of these media houses must be present at the villa to hear from our spokesperson 6 p.m. every day of our daily activities. What we have envisaged, what plans we have, what we want to do, and how we intend to achieve them, so that it will be easy for you people to say, we contacted them, we talked to them, and they spoke back to us, and this is what they said, not based on assumption. Now we are running a system where a lot of the political office holders are reluctant to have this communication, and so you are forced to still push out something that you believe is the situation. In most cases, might not be exactly so, but they get offended and say you're trying to work against them. In truth, we will hold no barriers, especially as to press freedom, and ensuring that you get a chance to have a good communication with the people at the helm of affairs, so that you can communicate with the Nigerian people effectively. So your
administration will remember the fact that the journalists or the media, they're the fourth estate of the realm, and they will definitely keep their parts sacred. Is that what you're promising?
Yes.
Great. All right then, viewers, you've heard it all from Buhari Ahmed. He is the vice presidential candidate of ADC, and we've been talking to him. It's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. How time flies when you're discussing serious, very salient matters. Thank you so much for your time with us. We do wish you all the best.
Thank you.
All right, viewers, we'll see you again next time. Keep watching The Conversation, because you never know who my next guest will be and what my next topic will be all about. I'll see you again next time. From the nation's capital, Abuja, I am Annabelle Oji. God bless Nigeria.